All right, well, I'm so excited to be joined now by Real Clear Politics national political correspondent Susan Crabtree, one of the best reporters in the business who has been doing incredible and such critical work on the Secret Service story in the days after the attempted assassination on President Donald Trump. Susan, thank you so much for joining us. It's a privilege to talk to you amidst these crazy important reports you've been putting out, it feels like, every day.
Well, thank you so much for having it, Emily. And, it's an incredible topic to be delving into. And I don't think I've worked on a more important story in my lifetime. I've covered Secret Service for many years now, but not something like an assassination attempt, that we haven't seen this in my lifetime. Well, certainly we did with Reagan. I was pretty young at that time. I think I was 12 when that happened, maybe younger. So this is something that we need answers to, and the Secret Service needs a complete overhaul. And it's really disconcerting what I'm uncovered in the last, since in the last month. It's almost been 1 month since the assassination attempt.
And there have been lapses in Secret Service before that you've reported on. We'll get to those in a moment, but if you could just start by taking us back to what you were hearing from sources as you started on this incredible story in the minutes, literally in the minutes, after the attempted assassination on former President Trump, now the candidate, the nominee for the Republican ticket. So what is going on? What are you hearing immediately in the aftermath? Because that launched this incredible breadth of reporting you've done since.
Yes. So that night, I was getting ready to go to Milwaukee for the Republican National Convention. So I was scrambling, trying to get a hold of old sources. And actually, some of them came out of the woodwork to talk to me. And the first thing, I went back to look at what was the first thing I heard about this. And the first thing was look into the drone situation. They didn't have drones that day. They have a drone mitigation service. I'll have a story about this coming out. It'll be more technical later this week. But, that was pretty prescient to hear that night. Then the next morning I had to pack and I had to get on the plane. And as soon as I got on the plane, luckily I had good Wi-Fi, because people were coming out of the woodwork to talk to me that I had talked to. I frequently, every once in a while, when the Secret Service stories, security lapses come up, I talk to these people. They tell me things because I've known and developed these relationships for years, and it's sort of like the saddest thing is it's deja vu all over again, because these individuals are saying some of the same things. There's so many security lapses, and Congress looked into it back in 2014, and nothing got changed despite a blue ribbon panel. So in the first days afterward, the first 24 hours afterwards, I was hearing look into it's called a site agent, or the lead agent. This person was, I'm told, it wasn't very competent in a senior level member of the Secret Service, but never had this type of detailed open air forum where 50,000 people are coming. This person is a woman. I'm not disclosing her name out of concern for her safety, but didn't have this kind of on the ground experience for these types of complicated rallies with so many sightlines and actually so many people with an increased Iranian threat. We didn't really know about the increased Iranian threat until the Secret Service started pushing back on some of my early reports. Some of the first things I heard also were that they had the team that is the innermost security team that is on the regular detail for Donald Trump covers him. There's about 60 members of that team. Some of them are special agents. Some of them are support staff. But that they were asking for more assets from headquarters, and they were being denied repeatedly. I also heard one of the first things, and I reported this about 5 o'clock on the Sunday night afterwards, was that there was a misallocation of resources between the two competing events in Pennsylvania that day. That there was this huge Donald Trump rally in Butler, and then not very far away in Pittsburgh, there was a Jill Biden event that was 300 people at a closed inside indoor casino, and that actually some of the assets, there were more serious assets that were being devoted to her event, and that I needed to really check into that. It turns out that some of that was proven a week later when Senator Grassley released to me details of his findings, that there were 3 assets, they're called post standards, that were assigned to the Donald Trump rally, only 3, and there were 12 assigned to the Jill Biden event. We're still trying to get more information, whether Jill Biden had a counter sniper. That would be hugely significant. We're still trying to get the allocation of all the resources that Jill Biden had compared to Donald Trump. They are stonewalling my questions on that.
Well, and Susan, can I ask you more about that? Because Secret Service, I've been shocked by this. You'd think if ever there were a moment for humility that they would maybe seem chastened, it would be this moment. And instead, they have come out swinging against well-sourced reports like your own. They have denied your reports by name. They've come out after Susan Crabtree's reporting here and defended themselves rather than kind of taking the L when you have this successful shot being grazing the ear of a former president, current major ticket nominee. Why, based on what you've heard from sources and all of that, why are they being so defensive and not just putting their heads down and saying, damn it, we made a mistake. We need structural changes. We'll do better next time. Why on earth? What explains their attitude in the aftermath of all of this?
Well, it was funny to me because I had actually had a similar experience back in 2014 where the Secret Service was lying to me about an event, a security lapse I broke this particular security lapse. It was a man that had a gun that wasn't authorized to have a gun, who was in the elevator with President Obama at a visit that Obama was doing in Atlanta at the CDC there, and they lied to me about it. And I said, well, I'm going with the story because I have excellent sources on this, and they were lying to other reporters about it. But then I had the story first, and then the Washington Post cited my story, and the New York Post cited my story and confirmed it themselves, and then they had to back down. And what happened on that event was that Jay Johnson, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary at the time, was mad that he was lied to. They lied to him as well, and they didn't tell President Obama about this particular security lapse, didn't come clean with him. So he was mad, and he fired both of them, the communications director, Ed Donovan, and Julia Pearson, who was the first female agent, first female chief of the Secret Service, who they put in place to try to solve the Columbia prostitution scandal. They wanted a woman, the first woman chief, but she failed in that capacity, to be honest, with President Obama and the DHS secretary. So I've been down this road before. I was a little shocked when I had been emailing and calling, and when I got to Chicago from my layover, I thought for sure they were going to call me because I had just spoken to their top communications director, Anthony Guglielmi, a couple months ago when there was another security lapse at Joint Base Andrews that I broke part of that story. And we had a decent relationship, so I said, I'm waiting for his call. I think he's going to call me. Didn't call. I waited, put out another story about the misallocation of resources between the Jill Biden event and the Donald Trump event. And next time morning, I woke up. I was late because I was delayed in Chicago for a lightning storm. I had 3 or 4 hours sleep. I woke up and Fox News was reporting at like 7 a.m. that Anthony was saying that my story was very wrong. So I just said, you never answered I just said, okay, if we're going to have this conversation on X.com, then why don't you answer all my questions that I submitted to you 14 hours ago? And I just said, okay, then, I've been down this road before. The Secret Service, I think that there's an arrogance there, and I think they hide behind the secret part of the Secret Service a lot. And only when they are under serious fire, like I feel like they're starting to come and develop better relationships with reporters just in the last few days. But the credibility is shot, and I don't understand why Anthony Guglielmi still has his job. He lied to the Washington Post, he lied to everybody, and then come to find out the Friday afterwards, everyone was reporting things I had reported on Sunday, but were told that they were lies or that I was very wrong. So, he looks bad right now. And so, but it was hard to do that week and continue on. Thankfully, my editors supported me at Real Clear Politics because they knew I was deeply sourced on this issue. But, I did have that hanging over my head saying, well, I'm going to stand by my sources and we'll see where the chips come out. And in the end, I think we were looking pretty good at the end of the week.
Secret Service, from my limited experience at least, has a reputation in the media and has since at least the Obama era for being kind of a mess. I feel like it's something that people sort of know. And I wanted to ask Susan how you would assess some of the media's coverage of this that you've outdone. You've gotten this earlier. On the other hand, it seems like some people have been afraid to tell the truth about Secret Service. What's your sense been of how other reporters have handled the story in the last month?
Well, it's funny to me that Kimberly Cheadle, the first interview she did sit down, and I think the only interview she did was with ABC News. And it was with someone I'd never seen on the beat before. You have to know their games. They get into the semantic situation with you that, oh, I said they were temp agents. There were a lot of temp agents there that day, and they call them by the acronym. No, they're CNOS. Well, CNOS is the lingo that the Secret Service community sources were telling me. We're using the term temp. So I go back to my sources and I say, well, they're saying they're CNOS. And yeah, that's the technical term for them. We call them temps. They're drawn from different field offices, but this is how they get you, and they try to manipulate the truth, basically, is they'll get you on a technicality, and if you're not seasoned enough, it's just to keep pressing and say, yeah, well, I'm comfortable with my sources, and I'm not going to sit there and let you manipulate. In fact, a few months ago, they tried to convince me and my editors to take the name off of the woman who had a mental breakdown at Joint Base Andrews, to take her name out of our story. And my editor, I said, that's my editor's decision. We did talk about it extensively. He made that decision, but you're welcome to talk to him. And he used the example, well, CBS News is not using this name. And I said, CBS News was just awful to Catherine Herridge, a phenomenal reporter. Why would you bring that up as the example that you're going to use with me? That has no credibility with me. CBS News, the way they're treating Catherine Herridge, no. That's not the pillar of journalistic integrity.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's a great story, Susan, because it's just too many people don't do that and just go along with it. They're like, oh, CBS did it. Okay, well, maybe I should do it too. I don't want to be the one who gets yelled at the cocktail parties or whatever it is. There's this question of incompetence versus malice at the Secret Service right now, and it's a sensitive issue for a lot of kind of average Trump supporters around the country who look at the Russia collusion hoax and Peter Strzok and Lisa Page and the insurance policy, and they say, well, is there something like that going on at the Secret Service, and that can lead down horrible conspiratorial rabbit holes? But the country has sort of been through this before with assassination attempts. On the other hand, so much of your reporting is pointing the finger straight at incompetence, just straight at total layers and layers of incompetence that have been metastasizing for years as the media has let them get away with this, the presidential administrations have let them get away with this, and if there's one administration you'd think presidents would care about being competent, it would be the Secret Service. So help us sort of understand, Susan, how, there are a lot of conspiracy theories going around here, but to me it looks like this is just rank incompetence. How is the Secret Service so incompetent? And is the Secret Service so incompetent?
I think there's wonderful people that work in the Secret Service, and I think the rank and file are pretty amazing. The people that I've come to know and respect and admire, and certainly the people that were on the stage with President Trump that day and the way that they reacted, it was admirable. And anyone who's willing to put their body in front of a president acting as a human shield, it is something to be admired and respected and valued. And certainly President Trump has expressed that praise for that team on the stage. But when we're talking about repeated denials of security assets and the excuse is used that this is a former president, so we're going by our former president protocols, so we're not going to deploy, we're not going to allocate a counter sniper team until there's an incredibly heightened Iranian threat. I don't think that makes sense, and especially that's why I'm so interested in the exact allocation between the Jill Biden event inside a casino, 300 people or less, and an event attracting 50,000 people at an outdoor rally nearby. So we need to know that that exact allocation. And that is incredibly relevant. And this all outmoded protocol that we're just going to go by former presidents, like Jimmy Carter, and even President Obama, whose profile has definitely been lowered since he left office, even though he's still a powerful figure and deserves, absolute, wonderful assets in terms of security, because I'm sure he is still under a lot of threats, but nothing like Donald Trump, who's one of the most controversial figures in our lifetime and globally. And certainly we have this Iranian threat that's just deeply concerning to me. And I cannot emphasize this enough. If the FBI did not alert the Secret Service until maybe the day before that they were closing in on this Palestinian individual with ties to Iran who had an assassination plot against the president, an active one. If they did not tell them until the day before, that explains a lot to me. But it is ridiculous to have them the one investigating the Secret Service failures. They were part of the failure if they did not tell. Now, I'm also hearing murmurings, and I'm looking into this, that maybe they told headquarters and they didn't tell, and the headquarters didn't tell the detail. Well, let's look into that. The problem that I'm seeing with the Secret Service is layers of incompetence, but there's also a slight political element to this. And I don't want to get, this is not conspiratorial. This is just, why would you not think that Donald Trump breaks the mold? He does breaks any type of protocol you've ever had for a former president. And why aren't you innovative? The same reasons why maybe you don't have operational drones, except tethered drones at permanent location sites, like Camp David and the White House and other places. But they're not regularly using drones at all. And so, that kind of outmoded thinking in resistance to change is a real problem with the Secret Service. And certainly, I think there could be a political element to it in terms of Donald Trump. Why wouldn't you change that outmoded thinking?
Right. No, that's so interesting, actually, because now the Iranian threat is looming and there's still a presidential election happening in this extremely fraught and heated political environment in the United States. So, Susan, last question is just, what worries you about the Secret Service right now? They're continuing to point fingers at local law enforcement, which, even if there's validity to pointing fingers at local law enforcement, they're still the top dog. Buck stops with them. It is so classless, and I think this is just my personal opinion. It's classless and unhelpful for them to continue pointing those fingers. So they have a big job ahead of them. And as you wrote, they are, quote, in crisis. So what worries you? What are you looking for when it comes to Secret Service in the weeks ahead, as Americans, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, are looking around and thinking, what could happen with the rallies, with the parades, with everything going forward?
They are starting to get their technology, from what I understand, up to speed. They are starting to roll out their drone programs. They're starting to believe the people that that have always suggested them that they need technological advancements, and that's one of the reasons why I had that in email that was reply all. A whistleblower just couldn't believe that they finally instituted a R&D innovation division, and that's why this individual was angry, who's counter sniper, who said, it's a little too late, guys. One person is already dead. So they are saying that now Donald Trump gets all the assets he wants. I think they're on high alert, but you can't turn this aircraft carrier around. It's like, you can't immediately hire people. They have to absolutely work with local law enforcement because they still have to rely on them. It takes a year to train a Secret Service, hire and train a Secret Service agent. So they need to have extremely better, they need to just vastly improve their communications with the local law enforcement, which I'm sure they already have. Their command centers need to be coordinated. They need to make sure the Wi-Fi is working. All these basic things is just ridiculous. So, yeah, I think they're on high alert, and I still think they're doing an amazing job. But we also have a silly incident with a break-in to a salon on Kamala Harris's detail last week. And it's just, come on, guys, get the act together, follow the protocols, and work with local law enforcement. I will have, my latest story delves into some of the deep-seated, retaliation, allegations and rancor and dissension on Donald Trump's detail. And I'm sure it's not going to make Donald Trump very happy and his campaign team to see the story, but they need to shape it up. People need to get professional, and I'm also concerned about their training. That can be, we can go into that another time, Emily, but they lowered their standards recently, and in order to fill some manpower shortages, and I'm not sure that's a good idea either.
You said manpower shortages, Susan.
Yeah, there's a DEI issue there.
I was going to say. Well, yeah.
I shouldn't use the word manpower. And manning the rooftop, I've also been criticized for using that term.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Well, this broader story, there's nothing funny about it. And Susan, the reason that the stakes are so high right now is it does feel like we're a powder keg in the country, and just all it takes for things to be thrust into even more chaos and civil unrest is a match, the lit match to be thrown on the fire. And it just feels like we're so close to that. So Secret Service needs people to be doing this kind of reporting to help them. So Susan Crabtree, national political correspondent at Real Clear Politics, thank you so much for stopping by the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Emily. Thanks so much for the interest in the topic and having me on.
Well, if you enjoyed watching this clip, make sure to subscribe, turn those notifications on YouTube, leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. We're here every week, twice a week, with fresh clips coming out just about every day. We appreciate it so much. Make sure to subscribe.